Good morning and welcome to our next workshop as a part of the Missouri Public Transit Conference program. Can we share a ride to fill the service gaps? We know that closing the first and last mile gap for transit providers, continues to be a challenge for many communities for many reasons, whether it's organizational lines, budgets, politics. Transit providers have traditionally focused on running single-mode public transportation services. But now, transit agencies are being challenged to think outside the box to become multimodal mobility managers. We're excited to welcome our panel this morning that looks at several different solutions out there and underway in Kansas City and East St. Louis to fill that gap. First, though, let's take a moment to hear from our sponsor, Commute with Enterprise.
The time is coming for us to get out and go again, to visit all the places we didn't know meant so much. But we're all going at our own speed. At Enterprise, peace of mind starts with our complete clean pledge, curbside rentals, and low-touch transactions. With so many vehicles of so many kinds, you can count on us to help you get everywhere you want to go. Again, whenever you're ready, we're ready for you. Enterprise.
Thank you to Enterprise as well as TransLoc for sponsoring the conference the last 2 days. We really appreciate your support. So I'd like to begin with welcoming our panel, and we have a big panel today, so this is going to be a fun conversation. We have Lisa Womack, who is the Director of Mobility Services for KCATA. Welcome, Lisa. We have Ken Sharkey, the Managing Director of the St. Clair County Transit District in Illinois. Welcome, Ken. We have Cheryl O'Connor, the Commute Sales Manager for Commute with Enterprise. And Cheryl, did you want to introduce your partner in crime really fast?
Yeah, I have a coworker on the line with me today, Amber Taylor. She's our local sales representative that helps to work with employers and potential participants to get them into a Vanpool program. I'm not sure if she's on video, but just wanted to get her name out there and introduce her to the group. So thanks, Kim.
Great. Thank you. And we have Robert Wilson, the Director of Transportation for ATS in Southwestern Illinois. And we have Austin Jude Stanion of TransLoc. So welcome to our panel today. I'm excited to hear all that you have to say. Each of our panelists has experience in meeting the needs of that first and last mile gap, whether from the vendor side or from the service provider side. So what I'd like to do to begin is ask each of you to provide us with some background about your experience or work with regards to meeting that first last mile mobility need. And so why don't we start with Ken Sharkey, if you'd like to jump in first, Ken.
Well, hi, Kim. Thank you so much. You know, I've only been in the industry about 2.5 years, so I've been reading a lot in industry manuals and, talking with Metro about first and last mile concept. And then I heard that Kansas City was actually kind of a leader in providing first and last mile. So I actually got in the car and drove to Kansas City and met with Lisa, and she was so helpful with providing a lot of different information to me. And, I went out and rode the system to have firsthand experience in how it actually worked. And I came back and, for basically a $25,000 initial investment with TransLoc, I thought, we don't really have anything to lose. Let's give it a try. So we started that concept in the city of East St. Louis with the SCCTD flyer, and the actual operator of that, we contract with Southwestern Illinois College, and they offer a service for paratransit service with alternative transportation systems. So Rob Wilson's actually is the one that provides that service for us. So we actually write the check for the service, but Rob's actually the one that puts the service into effect on the street. So we started the TransLoc operation and kickoff of the SCCT flyer in East St. Louis, November 1st of last year. And we were building up to about 15 to 20 miles of 15 to 20 riders a day pre-COVID. Then the COVID came along, and then the ridership took a big dip like the rest of the system did. And currently we're rebounding. We're offering about 8 to 10 riders a day, which is pretty low. We did do the initial service of 6 months with TransLoc, and we signed a 1-year agreement to extend it for another another year. And so we're operating that. In addition to that, we replaced a number 7 metro route that serviced Fairmont City, which is neighboring to East St. Louis, and we're also offering the SCCT flyer to pick up riders in Fairmont City, where the Metro 7 wasn't hauling that many passengers. So we thought we'd be a little bit more cost effective by expanding the SCCT flyer into that zone. So.
Thanks, Ken. Lisa, would you like to jump in next and give us a little update on your experiences? Ken just propped you up as what should be, so.
Well, he set the bar lower. I want to lower the bar a little bit, Ken. So thank you for having us. At KCATA, we have an interesting mix of challenges. We manage services for different agencies in different regions with different fundings, and honestly, it's just like everywhere else. If you look at one side of your jurisdiction, it might look different. The needs and transportation needs might look different on the other side. So we are always trying to take temperatures and the pulse of our region to figure out what's the best solution. So with the current microtransit, one of the microtransits that's running, because we actually have 2 that are running, but the first one was in Johnson County, and it was just kind of an exciting way to not only fill a first and last mile gap, but to actually just fill a gap where there was not a great fixed route option for a really large population. And so that was really the reason why we put this into place. And we're actually just a couple days away from taking that successful program, and it's still kind of in a pilot phase, and we're just going to make it even bigger. And so effective Monday, that service area will be expanding. Right now it's about we jokingly sometimes call it macro transit and not micro transit because it's got such a big service area. It's about 50 something square miles, and it's going to be about 80 come Monday. And we're going to have a lot of vehicles in there. We've done some interesting things with our peak time where we've thrown cabs into the mix as well. TransLoc's software has been really adaptable for us to be pretty creative with how we manage our demand and peak times. Obviously with COVID, our trips lowered for a little while, but we are actually spiking right back up with our trips per day and doing some interesting things to try and make sure we keep our customers and our drivers safe. And so I look forward to this discussion, hearing about everybody's experiences and sharing a little bit more about what we're doing. And I can just say the main thing that's working for us is all the partnerships. We have a great operational provider with a local company. We've got a great partnership with TransLoc as well. And then on the flip side, we also have a great partnership with Enterprise as well for our van pool program, which also helps fill some gaps in our area.
Thank you, Lisa. Rob, do you want to talk a little bit about ATS and how you are a subcontractor to Ken with regards to that first last mile gap before we introduce our vendors as well?
Of course, yes. So ATS is a subcontractor with St. Clair County Transit District. We are a form of a portion of the Southwestern Illinois College. We run the paratransit portion of St. Clair County, similar to what Colorado is within St. Louis. So Ken talked to me almost a year ago to the day about starting this new program. It's an innovative program that we didn't see in the St. Louis region. Spoke to me about Lisa Womack and what she's doing out in Kansas City. And it was something that it was exciting to do. So we jumped in, we supplied two of our paratransit vans to make it accessible to everybody. And we started brand new from scratch, along with TransLoc, and it was a lot of fun and exciting ways to go about it.
Great, thank you, Rob. So, you know, we have an audience here of more than 50 individuals who are representing different transit providers of different sizes across the state of Missouri. And so maybe Cheryl, Austin, and Amber, if you guys want to jump in and talk a little bit about your experience with that first and last mile in all different market sizes, you know, KCATA and Metro Transit are the two largest transit providers in Missouri, and Ken is the Illinois side of Metro Transit. So hoping that you guys, when we kick off your conversation, can talk a little bit about your experience in different market sizes too. Cheryl, you want to jump in?
Sure, thanks, Kim. We actually address that first mile, last mile issue with looking at the total commute trip. So, we tend to work with folks that have longer commutes. They're living, 10 or more miles from their actual job site. And we're really helping to fill those service gaps with our service because a fixed route option isn't the end all be all for everybody in the system, right? You want to make sure that you have a truly multimodal system to be able to address the needs of the community that can't use the fixed route options, right? So they're either working on shift work, so they're working on hours that the fixed route options can't work for them, or they live further away than half a mile from their local bus stop or rail stop, or let's say that you have somebody who's living downtown and they're working at that distribution center that isn't near anything really, let alone a fixed route option. And so that's where we really help to fill those gaps. Our service is flexible. We provide a 7 to 15 passenger vehicle, the insurance, maintenance, ride matching software and support, our great staff support, like folks like Amber, who are on the call today to help folks get into a van pool situation, and then mitigate any questions or issues they might have. So really it's the service that we're providing and the partnership that we have with KCATA is really extending that transportation footprint beyond those fixed route lines and really helping to provide a service for the community who can't use those options. So we address first mile, last mile by looking at the total commute route and figuring out if we can help some folks out and help to create some efficiencies within the full transportation system.
Great. Austin?
Yeah, thank you. Prior to starting at TransLoc, I was actually working at Los Angeles Metro, the transit provider for Los Angeles County. And when people think of LA, they might think of Hollywood or downtown Los Angeles, but there are lots of parts of Los Angeles County which are more remote, rural, suburban, even just desert. So when I was there, LA Metro was thinking about their mobility on demand and microtransit pilot programs, and thinking about not only how to serve the core, which, there's already some rail and like BRT lines throughout the core of Los Angeles, but looking at those outlying areas and how could microtransit and sort of a more on-demand style mobility serve those outlying areas which might currently be underserved by transit, and also taking an equity lens of, where are the areas that have been disinvested in for decades, where there haven't been the transportation investments as some of the other areas of Los Angeles. So now I'm working for TransLoc, which is a technology provider that enables microtransit services, but we also provide technology for standard fixed route services and also professional services in consulting and design and analysis. So our intention is to be a one-stop shop for our clients, where we can take your system as it is, look at the strengths and weaknesses, look where the potential for microtransit might be, where there could be cost savings using microtransit, where there can be increased access to jobs using microtransit, and then using the data generated by the system, the vehicle tracking, the microtransit trips, being able to pinpoint where are the hotspots in the system, where are the pain points, where are the peaks, how can we reshuffle vehicles to gain new efficiencies. So we're doing this in remote college campuses, which might have one vehicle for part of the day serving a wide area, and also in denser cities, for instance, Minneapolis, examining where microtransit might best serve that community, connecting to bus rapid transit. So sort of there's standalone microtransit, but then there's also microtransit connecting to more fixed route service. So I'm excited to be here to learn from the other panelists and to answer any questions on behalf of TransLoc.
Great, thank you. Amber, did you want to add anything?
No, thank you, Kim. Cheryl got it for Enterprise. Thank you, though.
Okay, great. So, we're seeing microtransit come in all different forms and sizes. The first microtransit we actually saw in the St. Louis market was in East St. Louis, and it was the introduction of Ken's new flyer, this SCCTD flyer in East St. Louis. And that's a market that people were like, what are we doing now? So let's talk a little bit about, from both sides of it, from the provider and from the vendor, what do you view are the 3 key elements to successfully meeting those service gaps that are out there that other communities, whether large or small, should be looking for? Anyone want to jump in first? Lisa, would you like to go first this time as the as the model?
Sure. I think the most obvious glaring one is funding. You have to have some funding. I think one of the things that's helped us be able to do some of the things we've done is we have really good support. Our elected officials are all on the same page for the most part, as much as they can be. There's been a lot of reception to trying to fill the gaps and make sure that we meet the needs of all various communities. In Johnson County, they are looking at equity. They're looking at some of the lower income areas. They're also looking at, the whole area, because it is a high income area as a county, but knowing that there's still pockets where people want to commute for whatever reason that is and connect. So I think having the flexibility, having those partnerships, being nimble, the funding is always going to be the thing that you have to figure out. But once you have an idea where that's coming from, and there's plenty of opportunities for little grants and things that come up to at least try something small, then I think that opens the door to letting you see the potential for something else. And what I'm thinking about when I'm thinking about this conversation is that microtransit kind of opens the door to a lot of other opportunities. It does give you the opportunity to figure out, is there a potential for van pools with this organization, when we have somebody calling saying, if you could just bump your boundaries out another 3 blocks, this company could get some help. So, maybe van pool's a solution. You can see if there's the opportunity for a fixed route solution, or I think there's a lot of potential with the microtransit pilots that we're doing. So I guess to go backwards, I'd say funding, I'd say being flexible and nimble and having some partnerships and making sure that you have the decision makers at the table at the beginning so that they understand where you're going and that you all have the same goals. So that way you can understand what your KPIs and what you want to accomplish with your programs.
Okay, great. Thank you. Ken and Rob, do you want to jump in and talk about what you think are the key elements to success? And microtransit hasn't been in St. Clair County for very long. So they're just getting their foot in the door here with regards to the flyer and other services.
I think, Kim, educating and getting the word out in the community and marketing the new service and what's available and how do you use the system, I think is kind of key. And luckily with your CMAQ funding that you had, we were able to do a lot more than maybe a lot of other transit agencies were able to do. I know Citizens for Modern Transit has helped us with direct mail. They helped us with the design of the wrap for the bus. They helped us with putting the advertisement on the Metro buses and on the MetroLink platforms. And we even employed a part-time person to go to various non-for-profits and some employers in the city of East St. Louis to advertise the system. So it's I think kind of a long build. I don't think it just happens overnight, and it's just something you have to have a commitment with and to do it for a very, very long time. You can't be in it and out of it. You just got to kind of stay with it and keep grinding away at it.
Great, thank you. Rob, did you want to add something?
Oh, yes. One of the key things that we found was actually communication with the public. We needed to communicate them and teach them how to actually use the program. And if they did not have a smart device, to be accessible to their needs as well. So what we did is we set up a dedicated dispatch reservation system to actually take rides and assist the passengers by teaching them how to use an app or to take the reservations and book the rides for them. Other options that we had was we were actually out pounding the pavement. We were up and down on the Metrolink platforms talking to the passengers that would be on the Metrolink train system and saying, asking them how did they actually get to the platform. Here in a few months, it's going to be nice and cold or extremely hot. Do you want to rely on other transportation or even your feet to get to the Metrolink station? Or would you want to be picked up from your front door and brought to the train station in a nice air-conditioned or heated bus? So that's some of the things that we went through in order to communicate with the passengers and bridge the gap.
Great. So Cheryl and Austin and Amber, can you talk a little bit from your side? What do you think are the 3 key elements to successfully meeting the needs of a service gap in a community and tying in with transit?
You go ahead, Cheryl.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, okay, thank you. So my big 3, I think Lisa really hit the nail on the head with the discussion of flexibility. I think she used the word nimble. And I think in today's day and age, that flexibility and sort of agility of services is so key. It's not something that transit is necessarily known for, but I think it's you know, the pilots going on now are showing that transit can be nimble, transit can be adaptive. And riders are starting to expect that in other aspects of their lives and other aspects of their travel. And so if transit can start to behave more flexibly, I think there's a lot of advantages there. My number 2 would be collaboration. I think that the collaborations and partnerships between public sector and private sector provide a lot of opportunity. But from what I've seen in my career, there's also a lot of risk for miscommunication. Private sector and public sector speak different languages, especially when you're talking about technology. When I was at LA Metro, you know, I was just watching sort of the missed communications. Both sides of the partnership wanted a successful implementation, but just often the language wasn't there. So that collaboration and communication between partners is so critical. And my 3rd, I'll say grounded innovation. And the reason I say grounded, I think sometimes it's easy for us to get really excited and jump off this cliff of innovation. I think we've all seen news headlines of transit agencies scrapping their services and contracting with a private rideshare company for their entire service, and that might save some costs in the near term, might provide some efficiencies in the near term, but really sacrifices that public control and that advocacy for public good, and creates a lot of long-term risks and might be seen as innovative, but certainly isn't grounded. So that's something I'm really excited to be working on here at TransLoc, is collaborating hand in hand with transit agencies to innovate, but still remain true to their core of serving the public and providing high quality services in their regions.
Sure.
Yeah, I think I echo just about everybody's sentiments, and especially yours, Austin, about grounded innovation. What I do every day, I work with large and small transit agencies across the country in very urban areas and very rural areas, and it's really coming together and understanding the needs of that particular transit agency or public entity, as well as the needs of the community. There's not one mode that will satisfy everyone. Let's look at this holistically. Can of course, van pooling pays my paycheck, right? So how van pooling can fit into the system, but also, you know, how do your bikers and your walkers and your folks who use fixed transit, how do they all interact together to create the most efficient transportation system out there? And then, you know, going back to education and awareness, you know, the old adage, if you build it, they will come, doesn't really work in transit. You got to build it and then market the heck out of it, right? To get your ridership up. That's, you know, it certainly works on the highway side. If you build more capacity, they will definitely fill it up rather quickly. But on the transit side, you know, really developing a good education and awareness presence or campaign or whatever you want to call it, I think is really key to making any sort of system successful, whether you're talking about a rural or urban system. And then finally, you know, once you have that education and awareness, or even before you start to do that education and awareness, building those relationships and making sure that the right stakeholders are at the table. So, you know, you might have, you know, St. Clair County as the transit agency. You might have TransLoc or Commute with Enterprise as your business partner. But, you know, pulling in those employers in any given area is really key to success for any transit program. You know, as much as they maybe don't want to admit it, they do have a responsibility in how their folks are getting to work every day. So making sure that you're engaging with those employers, they're at the table having the conversation. You've got the transit agency there. You've got your I don't like to say vendors, I like to say partners, because I think that's where the industry really needs to move. You know, we are partners in this. We all want the same things, right? We want to, you know, increase ridership on our specific modes and make sure that we're providing a quality of life to the community. So yeah, I think I sort of went back and forth. I don't think I laid it out 1, 2, 3, but I agree with everybody that had already spoken, and just adding my 2 cents worth in.
So our new tagline for this one will be transit and mobility. Let's not keep it a secret, right? So it's all about getting the message out there and letting people know that they have so many options. So, you know, from your perspectives, from the partner perspectives, I'm going to change my verbiage now, Cheryl, to partner perspectives, and then from those on the ground actually providing these mobility options. What have you seen as the most successful partnerships to date? I'm talking about what type of services. Lisa, is it van pooling, or is it, what are you seeing? You know, Missouri is probably in the middle, so we didn't start the micro transit trend. So what are we seeing on the East and West Coast that have probably worked the best in other cities that are lessons learned for other providers across Missouri who might be interested in looking at these mobility choices?
A big question. So I think if I was going to talk about lessons learned, I think when you say if you build it, they will come, or before you build it, make sure you're building something somebody wants to be built, and that it's actually a thing that is needed in that area, right? That's a huge lesson. And then I also think really trying to understand what you want to accomplish. What's the reason why you're doing this? Is, you know, we can throw a microtransit into any area, but why are you putting it there, and what do you want it to do? Is it a temporary thing because you're trying to build something bigger, or is it filling a gap, or is it first and last mile? So I think really knowing what you want and knowing what that community wants, I think is important. And then just for us, we're learning how important it is, you know, to try to find a way to do a regional funding and to really be open to the partnerships that we're all talking about. This new direction, I guess, or just the new face of just having different mobility options has opened up doors for a lot of I guess the lesson I'll say is to open the door and not close that door on the private partnerships. There are businesses out there that have a need for us. There's the healthcare industry, which that could be a whole nother 7 days of panels, right? Talking about getting people access to healthcare. And a lot of those organizations want to help in ways that whatever that might look like, you know, big or small. And so I think keeping the door open to different types of partnerships, making sure you communicate out your messaging, and making sure that the public is included to some extent and to what's reasonable, so that you're filling the need in a way that's going to be successful and sustainable. And I'm not sure if I answered your question or if I just rambled on what I wanted to say. So,
No, that's good stuff. That's really good stuff. I think that that's really important information. I just want people to be able to have examples to go to as well. You know, while you're talking about what you're talking about, putting those partnerships together, Lisa, we have a question in the chat box. Can you give examples of successful funding partners for microtransit and filling those grants? So what are the grant types, grant sources, and are those grants sustainable for continuing future operations? So we see that a lot, that you get an initial startup grant, but what does that look like over the life? Can anyone jump in and address some of those funding questions with regards to microtransit and filling the gap?
I'll just talk real quickly about a funding, it's not a grant, but so in the county where our microtransit is in Johnson County, the county typically pays for public transportation. So inside of that county, there's a number of cities there, and Overland Park is one of those cities. They have a downtown farmers market that they run, and it's really a successful pre-COVID, obviously. So everything I'm talking about is pre-COVID. But because of that, they saw this microtransit and it wasn't necessarily touching the areas they wanted to. So they approached the county and said, hey, if we invest in, offer some money into this transit, could we stretch your boundaries so that we can capture the people that we think want to come in here but maybe can't? And that to me was a new thing. We've got, and I can't speak to the particulars, but I know that the county business liaison has got a number of private sector businesses, most of them with healthcare, that have been approaching him for some partnerships as well. We're already in the service area. Does that mean that they pay in a chunk so that the service to this particular medical clinic is free, or what does that look like? So we're seeing those type of opportunities open up in that area, and hopefully will come to fruition, so that way more people will have more access to more opportunities in the area. So, and there are a few, I know there's some startup, again, grants a lot of times are startup things and maybe not as sustainable in the long run, but you could maybe potentially look at 5310 funding if you tailor your microtransit to that particular sector of the community, or 5307 or some of the other funding types like that, which are ongoing and can be more sustainable. But there are a lot of federal programs. I just am not the grant person that could speak to intelligently to that.
Great. And someone did just add to the chat box that there are 130 plus federal programs that can support transportation in some way. The Federal Coordinating Council on Access and Mobility has addressed this. So there is a link in the chat box if anyone is interested in that. But anyone else, do you have any other examples of grant programming or local funding that has supported microtransit successfully in other communities? Or Ken, do you want to talk about how you're addressing it in St. Clair County?
Well, you know, fortunately, we're fairly well funded, so we're able to take the existing stock that we have and vehicles that we have to be able to convert them and put them into service. So, for example, I've got like 25 new buses coming in the next quarter, which is about 50% of the replacement for Rob's fleet there at ATS. Where we could have help, and that's where Citizens for Modern Transit has helped us quite a bit, is the marketing and the advertising, because we really don't have those resources in-house to put those programs together. So with partnering with Citizens for Modern Transit to be able to apply for the CMAQ grants, we've been fairly successful the last couple of years, and we've been able to do some direct marketing and outreach to the community, educate them about this new form of transit. The system that we have in St. Clair County's been in existence for a long time, but the employment centers in St. Clair County have changed quite a bit. Neighborhoods and new subdivisions, and the movement of population within the county, and we need to find a way to be able to move with them to be able to offer the services that they may now need, not something they maybe needed 10 years ago. So we're trying to figure that out, and we're trying to address that need. And then, most recently we did, as you know, the Transit Vision 2020, where we looked at the modeling for all our fixed route service in St. Clair County. And we identified some of those fixed route services for maybe some alternative type services like this micro transit. So, we have a couple more routes in mind where we may want to transition that in the future once we get everything in place.
Thanks, Ken. I think what's important to point out is if people aren't familiar with the St. Clair County Transit District, they are the Illinois portion of the Bi-State Development Service area. So they have 18 Metro bus routes over there in that region, and Ken is their managing director. So they, over the last year and a half, have been very deliberate and strategic in looking at their resources and what service fits the markets that are now out there. Their bus service had not been looked at for more than 20 years. So they were running the same 18 routes for the last 20 years. And by doing this kind of strategic, it was a strategic plan of their 18 bus routes, Ken had the opportunity to better fit service to the market. And I think that's what they're doing an excellent job over there of looking at what the other options are out there besides a large fixed route service, which might only have 3 riders in some areas, and there might be other options. So
I think it's also important to add that you can take some, if you have in Wyandotte County where we have a microtransit, they took the fixed route funding and just shifted it over and replaced a fixed route with a microtransit because it just seemed more conducive to that ridership there. So that's another maybe creative way to shift some money around.
I think that's an excellent point, Lisa, that some operators may actually find a cost savings in shifting from a full direct, full bus line to a microtransit option.
Go ahead, sorry.
Oh, thank you, Cheryl. Just quickly, I just wanted to add on to Lisa's comment about sort of looking at existing opportunities. There's, the low performing fixed route example where you can save money there with a microtransit. And TransLoc is also looking into how can we save agencies money on their paratransit operations. Paratransit is often one of the more difficult, one of the more sort of expensive per ride operations. And if we can meet the needs of paratransit customers and maybe even in a better experience, more of an on-demand experience through microtransit, and then cut down costs on paratransit, that's one more way that sort of using existing budget, microtransit can be a service for everyone.
Yeah, I would double down on that as well. We've often worked with transit agencies with underperforming fixed route bus service, talked to the folks who are riding that bus, and we were able to successfully transfer them into van pools, which is a considerable cost savings for the transit agency, and it's more door-to-door service for the actual participants. And then going back to the question on sustainable funding sources. So specifically in the van pool space, we work with FTA and FHWA funding sources, both, on the FTA side, 5307, 11, 5339, those are all eligible to run a contracted van pool program or even an in-house van pool program. And then on the highway side of things, CMAQ is a big portion of a lot of our programs utilize that piece. There's also National Highway Performance Program funding. But, talking about sustainable sources, a lot of our programs will start with maybe CMAQ or NHPP. And then as we report National Transit Database information and the data from the van pools are actually helping to create more formula funding under 5307 or 5311, we then start to see a switch maybe in year 3 or 4 over to using FTA money. But even outside of that, and there is let me go back to FTA. There is a piece of legislation under FTA that if you have a contracted van pool program, you can actually utilize the capital and fair revenue that your contractor is pulling into the system as your 20% local match. So you can use your 5307 and not have to worry about going to the general fund or whatnot to find that 20% local match. And then some of the outside the box thinking on funding really is, we see a lot of economic development funds. You know, what better way to increase the economic vitality of any given area than to get folks to work who either can't use the fixed route system, or they don't have a mode of transportation, or they want to create some efficiencies in their own life by saving time or money and getting into a van pool situation. So economic development funds, we see some local funding being used, whether it's, you know, program state funding under STP, or, you know, a local sales tax district being used to fund our program. So, you know, the comment in the chat box of, you know, 130 federal programs that can be used to support transportation, and a lot of those can be used for van pooling. There's probably another 100 more that you could come up with, sort of outside the box thinking, or not directly transportation funding that you could use to start these programs, not just van pooling, but, you know, other microtransit options as well. So I think I just rambled on for a long time there. I think Lisa and I we're in the same boat. So.
No, very important information. And I do want to jump in 1 second to our audience that is listening. I know some of you have colleagues who are potentially having problems logging back into this workshop. So I want to let you know on the technical side that people are working on that login to make sure that more people can get into this workshop as soon as possible. But I did want to let you know that we knew that that was a concern, and we are addressing it. So moving on, what has been the biggest challenge that you have seen thus far in your roles in answering these service gap needs? Let's look at the other side. So, you know, we know people are out there considering options like this, but what has been, let's make them aware of what might be a stumbling block so they know ahead of time what they might be facing. No one?
I'll go.
Oh, you go ahead, Lisa.
So we, anticipating demand for any new service is hard to do, right? So I think that was a stumbling block once we got to a point where the demand was big and wait times were getting longer, and we still struggle with that during our peak times. So that is something that we had to work through and weren't necessarily prepared for, but thankfully the market that we're in, they do have funding, and they could accommodate and buy vehicles and do things. So making sure you're prepared for growth if growth happens. And I guess if you look at a couple of years back, our first, I don't even call it microtransit, but our first thing that we had that was microtransit-ish with Bridge, where there wasn't ridership. So I think that was a stumbling block as well. What do you do when nobody wants to ride that service? So to me, that was a challenge. And then I think just in general, filling some of these gaps and finding what's the best mode for each area has been challenging, at least just for me, because this has worked in this area doesn't mean that it'll work, you know, up north where we have some people who are asking for some more service up there. This might not be the best solution for them. I honestly think that, you know, van pools are more, but it's not necessarily the most known, or it's not the most talked about. And so I think trying to find the right answers for each area when there's just problems that are different in each area is huge. We don't have, we don't have a regional funding, and we have all these different pockets. And so trying to bridge those gaps and find solutions when someone says, why do you have all this service here and we have none, is a big deal. And then I think communicating to the public is always a challenge, because you can throw things on social media, you can put things on your website, you're always going to miss somebody. And so there's always an ongoing challenge. And I always just commend our marketing team and communications team for doing the most to try to get to all the people in the area, teaching them what your new service is, finding out what service they want, figuring out a way to accommodate that, and then figuring out a way to communicate when you can't accommodate everything that everybody wants. So those are some things that stand out to me.
So I think it's understanding, you know, where the customer, where the rider wants to go. So we designed a system with the SCCTD flyer. Basically, the point of origin or the ending of your trip had to touch a Metrolink platform in East St. Louis. So basically, we wanted to boost ridership on the Metrolink train system, and we wanted to boost ridership on the bus system, where the bus system feeds into those 4 or 5 locations in East St. Louis. And so for the first and last mile concept, and one of the things we heard early on for some of the non-for-profits in the city is how oftentimes people might be victimized just standing at a bus stop waiting for a bus. So we figured, well, maybe we can pick you up at your home. You don't have to stand at the bus in the rain or the snow or the heat, and get you directly to the platform. But you know, maybe they want to go somewhere else. So we maybe have to take a look at servicing other places within the zone other than touching a Metrolink platform or and service some other areas. So, you know, I think it's something we need to take a look at that after we designed this service since November, and maybe do some modifications and try to do a little more outreach on where people may want to go.
I'll jump in and echo Lisa's point to communications. I think if you talk to the average transit rider in the United States and you say microtransit, they probably have no idea what you're saying. If you talk to them about Uber and Lyft, they probably know how that works. They've probably used it, maybe not. But microtransit, it's a new concept, and that's one of the reasons that TransLoc has a dedicated marketing team working with agencies on this exact issue of how do we talk to riders about new kinds of service, and how do we tell the story for them of why this might be a better option, why they should consider trying it. Because new is hard. And around communications, I mentioned this before, but where I've seen one of the biggest challenges is where communications break down between partners, between public and private, between public and nonprofit, folks coming from different backgrounds with potentially different goals. And again, once you get technology involved, data sharing, different organizations have different standards around data, or what we often see, which is a sad outcome, is a public sector agency generates lots of data about their system, but then doesn't really have any processes in place to do anything with that data. So they have that raw material, but they're not turning it into insights that could be used. So I think, that clear communication between partners, sort of knowing who's accountable for what and how to make the most successful partnership is the way to overcome that challenge.
So what are, this is just, I just had this based on what you were talking about, Austin, but what are some of the most unique community partnerships you have seen to get some of these services off the ground? Are they healthcare institutions in other communities, or what are you seeing as some really outside the box ideas as community partners on the ground that other providers might start to talk to or call and be like, hey, what about this? What are you thinking?
Yeah, so we have deployments all over the country. We do a lot of university, we do healthcare. Personally, what I'm most excited about are the municipal services. I think that's where there's a lot of potential. A deployment that I love to highlight is Gwinnett County, Georgia, which is sort of in the Atlanta metropolitan area. It's about an hour outside of Atlanta. A lot of individuals commuting out of Gwinnett County. And in 2018, Gwinnett County had very little sort of internal transit services. I think there was a commuter bus into Atlanta, but not much beyond that. And it's an area, it's certainly not an urban area. There are parts that would be classified as more rural. And it's an area where, I think a traditional transportation planner would look and say, yeah, transportation is, public transportation just isn't going to work so well here based on densities, based on trip patterns. But we worked with the county to launch microtransit in Gwinnett County, sort of focused on areas that currently underserved by transit. And we're pleasantly surprised to see over 300 passengers a day on our Gwinnett County microtransit service. So, I think every deployment is different. Every deployment is exciting in its own way. But I would love to see more Gwinnett counties. I would love to see more places where, the traditional transit tools might not work so well, but microtransit ends up being a really compelling option for folks who didn't have options before.
Okay. Anyone else want to jump in on that?
Yeah, I think really just looking outside the box, right? We as transit providers and transit professionals, we tend to stay pretty insular, right? We only talk to each other, but maybe looking outside the box, talking with your chambers of commerce. We've seen good success with folks re-entering the workforce and utilizing van pool situations when we work with entities like Goodwill or workforce development folks, or that a lot of folks are, even with COVID, are still looking at sustainability. What does sustainability mean? And so those sustainability entities within any given city, getting them on board if they're not already. I mean, that seems like a logical leap to me, but maybe it's not to everybody. Yeah, just sort of thinking outside the box, not just talking to other transit professionals, but engaging those employers or those innovative technology centers or what have you. It's funny you mentioned Gwinnett County, Austin. We have about 60 van pools down there with them, and they're looking to expand even more because they don't have population density, and they don't have a good fixed route. I mean, well, they do have good fixed routes. Sorry, let me correct that. They do have buses and things like that, but there was a referendum that was supposed to be passed down there a couple of years ago for extension of the rail line, and it failed. So now they're really looking at, okay, how do we look at some of these other mobility options to really serve our community? And that's true here in Missouri too. We have a partnership with KCATA, and thank you again for that partnership. But we also have 40 other van pools running in the state, mostly here in St. Louis. And then we've got a couple out in Columbia as well. And so, in some of these areas where it's just not feasible due to population density or funding or a host of other options, where it's not feasible to implement those fixed routes. Let's look outside the box and think about how we can move these folks better with some of these other public transit options.
Great. Thank you very much for those for that information. I think that's really helpful for people who are just thinking about getting into this space. So one final question from me, and then we'll see if there are any more questions in the chat box. But what is the lesson learned that you'd like to leave behind for the participants of this workshop? Again, I'm looking at the list, and they're representing from very small communities to the DOT and other transit properties that are larger scale. What is the lesson learned that you want to leave behind for others who might just be getting into this, who are already in it, and maybe this is something they haven't stumbled across yet?
For me, it's we're here to be your partner in this. I mean, even if it doesn't end up in some sort of van pooling contract, let's look at your area. Let's assess the needs of your community. Let's look at where people are traveling from and where they're going, and let's figure out what the best option for them would be. Hopefully it's van pooling. I might get in trouble for my boss for saying this, but maybe it's not, because there isn't one mode that satisfies everybody's needs. But we're here to be your partner. Let's look at your area, let's assess it, and go from there.
Okay. Anyone else?
I'd say from our standpoint, we took a step back a couple years ago to shift from just being a bus company to doing a transportation authority and trying to be a mobility provider, so that we understand that there's, again, what Cheryl said, one mode doesn't work for everyone. Our buses are our foundation, and that's our backbone, and we do that really well. We know how to do it, but that doesn't work on every street that we have and in every area that we have. So I think our lesson, I guess, or our thing that we have to constantly remind ourselves is that what we knew worked before, or what we thought worked, doesn't work as the community sprawls and open land looks attractive to developers, and they just go build there. So we've had to just learn to accommodate and be open to whatever modes make the most sense in whatever area, and be open to the partnerships and be open to what the community needs are. So I think just having that openness to not being stuck in your comfort zone and stepping outside of your comfort zone, I think will really make a huge difference.
Okay. Anyone else want to jump in with the lesson learned?
Is Rob out there?
Rob, I don't see Rob's face anymore. Rob, are you still with us?
I'm here if you hear me. I think I kind of froze.
We can hear you, Rob. We just can't see you. So if you'd like to be the anonymous voice in the dark, go for it.
Well, some of the challenges that we've put up with is obviously just communicating, finding out what they actually needed, and trying to focus on their needs.
Okay.
I'll
Ken, Austin. Okay.
Yeah, I'll jump in with a lesson learned. We've touched on it a few times throughout the panel, but I'll address the elephant that we are living in unprecedented times. COVID-19 creates a lot of uncertainty around the future of transit, the future of ridership, and during this time and also in the aftermath, in the recovery, I think we need to build flexibility and agility into our fleets, into our operations. Lisa mentioned this earlier. So as times change, so can public transit. And this is something that TransLoc has been focusing on for years, this agility, this flexibility. So, we would love to work with anyone to sort of figure out what the next steps are. But regardless, I think everyone really needs to sort of look internally and question, can we keep doing what we're doing and expect anything to be different? Because it's my hunch that this is an opportunity to really redefine what public transportation means and what it means for the public. So I hope we can all take that opportunity and come out of this a stronger, more compelling option for more people who need opportunity now more than ever.
Thank you. Thank you. Ken, did you have any lessons learned that you wanted to share?
Well, when we were, looking into selecting companies for microtransit, both now and in the future, what we encounter is a very, very young, very bright, talented workforce. And the industry, I think, is transforming quite a bit with either buyouts and consolidation. So there's a lot of changing in the industry. And I think going forward, it's probably best to look at successful operations where it's been implemented successfully and to reach out and try to learn from other people. Like I learned from Lisa by coming and visiting and talking to people that are on her system and learning from that. So, because the industry is just changing, fairly quickly. And it's just trying to keep your pulse on it, but probably go to school on where people have done it very successfully and how they were successful at it, and maybe learn from maybe the mistakes they made, so you don't have to repeat those mistakes in your system that you're trying to operate.
Well, thank you. I think this has been very informative for people. I don't see any other questions in the chat box. Before people disappear from the audience, I do want to let you know that there may be some technical difficulties with the website getting into the next workshop. So you will actually receive an email. So please go to your inboxes with direct links to the 12:30 workshop with the conversation with the FTA. And then the 1:45 substance abuse training, you'll have a direct link to both of those Zoom calls in your email inbox, because there may be some issue with going through the conference website right now. AT&T must be having a large-scale outage somewhere in the country that's impacting our website. So that's a little technological difficulty that I cannot fix, but my people are working on it here. So we hope to have that in your inboxes very shortly. I want to thank this panel. It has been very informative. I'm glad that we had so many perspectives from St. Clair County Transit District to KCATA to ATS, and then our partners on the ground helping us provide these services. Again, if you're interested, we always usually outline some of the success stories on the MPTA website at mopublictransit.org. where you can find additional resources. And I just want to thank you all today for your time. It was an excellent conversation. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Kim. Appreciate it. You
Thank
guys are
you.
doing a great job.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.